How much time?
Do
How
I
focused
spend
on at the State Department?
almost every day if I'm in the country? I travel a lot. It's part of the job.
So how much time do you spend at the other jobs if you spend every day at the State Department?
Well, now you know I can't offer you 8 hours today to answer every question on this committee, which you were complaining about earlier.
Did you anticipate or did you want, when you were sworn in to be the Secretary of State, do you want to have the jobs of USAID administrator?
No, I did not apply for those jobs.
Did not
but
apply
I was
for them.
asked to serve in those roles, and I'm happy to do it. The archives are doing great.
Based upon your testimony earlier, in some of these other departments, they were duplicative. So if it's duplicative, then get rid of them.
Well, you would have to pass a law to do that if you want to combine those 4 offices in your reorg.
Did you hear that? How can you handle 4 jobs? That is the ranking member Gregory Meeks trying to pin Secretary Marco Rubio down, basically accusing him of biting off more than he can chew. Beautif, you watch closely. What you're actually seeing isn't a secretary you're seeing a secretary who is exposing just how much bloat worsens the system to begin with. But Rubio didn't just defend himself in this hearing, he essentially put on a masterclass in executive management and shut down what felt like desperate guys. If you want to see what competence looks like against bureaucratic noise, stick around. We're breaking down the whole thing.
Chair now recognizes Ranking Member Meeks.
Thank you. I'm trying to figure something out. I know you said you read a lot of cables every day, and I know that when you first got sworn in at your confirmation hearing, you stated that being the Secretary of State would be an extraordinary responsibility. Here we are 4 minutes later, but reading cables every day. How much time do you spend at the State Department?
How much what?
How much time?
Do
How
I
focused
spend
at the State Department?
almost every day if I'm in the country? I travel a lot. It's part of the job.
I agree. I understand. But now you have 4 jobs, don't you? Now you're not only the Secretary of State, you are also the acting USAID administrator. You're also the acting archivist. You're also the interim national security advisor. You cannot spend every day at the State Department and then neglect your other jobs that you have the responsibility to do. So how much time do you spend at the other jobs if you spend every day at the State Department?
Well, now you know I can't offer you 8 hours today to answer every question on this committee, which you were complaining about earlier. Look, here's the thing. All those jobs are being done. USAID largely has been folded into the... Do you want my answer? Do you want to...
No, I just want to know this. Did you anticipate or did you want, when you were sworn in to be the Secretary of State, do you want to have the jobs of USAID administrator?
No, I did not apply for those jobs.
Did not apply
I was
for them.
asked to serve in those roles, and I'm happy to do it. The archives are doing great. The USAID has been folded under state, so it's a sort of a duplicative role. And the National Security Advisor, which is on an interim basis, has tremendous overlap with what we're doing at the State Department.
Well, then why not get rid of all of them and just put everything under you? Get rid of all those departments. If it's not crucial to have someone every day at as a National Security Advisor, you folded in USAID, you saying the archives is fine, get rid of them. Wouldn't that be then waste? Based upon how you have determined there's waste, based upon your testimony earlier, and some of these other departments, they were duplicative. So if it's duplicative, then get rid of them.
Well, you would have to pass a law to do that if you want to combine those 4 offices in your reorg.
Well, look, that hasn't stopped you in the past because the law requires you to consult with Congress on any proposed reorganization of USAID or the State Department. That hasn't happened. I agree. It should be the Congress's responsibility. Your staff claimed, quote, that you've extensively consulted Congress on your plan to fold USAID into state. But that did not happen. All we members have gotten was 1 hour of a meeting with Pete Morocco, who you later fired and who couldn't answer our most basic questions about the aid freeze. And you've ignored thus far. That's why I want to know about you've ignored nearly 20 letters from this committee seeking information about who, since you took office, as well as, not, we spoke one time, but not consulting this committee at all. I don't call that extensive consultation. So you're right. Things that you've done should be in collaboration with the United States Congress. But surely the USAID and all of these other things Congress was not consulted one time. Senator Rubio would have demanded it.
Well, we've complied with every part of the law. Every single part of the law has been complied with, including you, for example, have written us 16 letters. You've been briefed on 7 of them. Some of them we couldn't answer, and we told you why we couldn't answer, because they were subject to litigation. 4, you've gotten answers in writing, and 5 we've gotten just in the last few days. Well, 16 letters. I've been there 17 weeks. You write me a letter a week.
I'm going to yield my last 48 seconds to Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Rubio, thank you for being here. You know, corruption is determined by our democracy, is detrimental to our democracy, and the Trump administration has moved swiftly to scale back, reverse, and dismantle various guardrails that protect Americans from corruption. We have now a plane that he's accepting by a foreign government. His family's doing business deals with a foreign government. And your office has authorized Elon Musk company Starlink to do business in at least 5 African countries and many, many others. My question is, with the dismantling of the enforcement of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act and many other things, what efforts are you doing as Secretary of State to make sure that our government is free from improper foreign influence over our policy?
I mean, the examples you've given, Starlink's all over the world. There isn't a country in the world now that doesn't have Starlink for the most part. They have Starlink in Syria. We certainly didn't help them land that deal, but they've got Starlink's a global company that's present everywhere and continues to grow because they provide a very unique service no one else provides. I'm not aware of any plane that's been given. I know the media reports about it. I know that the Air Force One that's scheduled to be delivered is like 5 years off balance. So they went to Boeing, and this is the extent of what I know about this plane. I've never seen it. They went to Boeing and said, are there any planes that fit the bill? Boeing produced a list of planes that they'd sold over the last few years. One of them happened to be a Qatar. You'd have to ask the Department of Defense, because that would go to the Air Force. That would not come to the State Department. Beyond that, look, we're involved in helping businesses expand all over the world. There isn't a single day that we aren't involved in helping an American company gain access to a market, and we'll continue to do so. As far as people involved in our government that are doing that, I'm not aware of anyone on the cabinet or in the President's White House that's using the State Department to expand their personal portfolio. And if there are, we wouldn't help them do that. But no one's ever asked us to do that. So I think we're following the law with regards to what we're doing to prevent corruption.
So is the answer to
Chair recognizes Representative Smith from New Jersey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. First of all, it was an honor, Mr. Secretary, to serve with you as co-chair of the China Commission. We did so much together. I want to thank you for that leadership. It was extraordinary. I want to thank you for bringing the DR Congo and Rwanda together on April 25th. For that statement of principles. You are tenaciously pursuing peace all over the planet, including in DR Congo, where the fighting is very intense, it has been. And of course, tomorrow I have a big hearing on Sudan, and I know you're trying to do everything you can to try to mitigate the horrific violence that is occurring there. Let me just ask you a couple of questions, if I could. I had a hearing on Aliyev and Azerbaijan on the Tom Lantos Commission, and it's very clear that after the genocide committed by Aliyev against the Armenians, that there are many, many political prisoners and POWs being held. I would just encourage you to do whatever you can to get those men and women released, at least 300. I met with Aliyev twice in Baku. He's a dictator. You know, I know we work with dictators and we have to have at least some kind of conversation with them, but release those prisoners. They're being maltreated and horribly mistreated by Aliyev, so I would ask for that. Secondly, you know, you and I have worked on issues like forced organ harvesting. You and Tom Cotton were the prime sponsors of a bill on the Senate side. 2 weeks ago, we got the bill passed here again. It is a horrific human rights abuse by Xi Jinping, targeting the Uyghurs, of course, the Muslim Uyghurs, because those organs are being sold in the Middle East. So they want to have livers that are coming from a Muslim. So the market is very, very high, livers and other internal organs. And Xi Jinping is making billions by killing tens of thousands of young people, average age 28, each and every year. Falun Gong, and you know it, you're the sponsor of the bill. I would appeal to you, if you could. It passed the House 406-1. If we could get it out of the Senate, it would hopefully clamp down on this egregious human rights abuse in China. And it's a global bill. It would outlaw forced organ harvesting profoundly with real penalties up to 20 years in prison. for those who are part of that supply chain, but it would most directly affect Xi Jinping and the people who are doing this horrific abuse. I yield.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. On obviously the organ harvesting, China plays a concerning role in that regard, and we would obviously be helpful in any way we can in helping you pass that in the Senate, certainly putting a good word for it and the like. But it's not limited to China, unfortunately. There are other parts of the world where we're now seeing that, and there are places where we're trying to verify, but we hear reports of that. And that's something that's need to be called out as well. As far as Azerbaijan is concerned, our core focus has been on trying to establish a peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia. There's a real risk there of a conflict that we're trying to prevent from happening. Our teams have been very engaged in that regard and trying to make something come about and prevent an armed intervention there that would, and obviously within the context of those conversations, the issues you raised about prisoners and human rights are critical to it. And again, another example of where we want to use our embassies. So when we talk about people will complain, well, you got rid of the Human Rights Office and the functional bureaus, it's because it's being transferred to the regional bureaus. And our regional bureaus will not just have a focus on human rights within the bureau, but so will our embassy. And so that is the human rights issue with regards to Azerbaijan, and so that is what our embassy will be focused on pushing. It's different from what the human rights issue might be in another part of the world, but we think it's important to have people on the front line prioritizing these issues as part of our holistic approach. You've outlined it correctly. We do want to have, we may not agree with the system of government, we may wish it were different. But the truth of the matter is that we have to deal with countries in many cases that perhaps don't have ideal models, but we have to deal with them in our national interest, and we need to balance all of these things together, our national interests and diplomacy, without surrendering and finding opportunities to further interests such as human rights. And Azerbaijan provides us an opportunity to do that in the context of the broader peace that we're trying to establish there.
Let's be real. Rubio walked into that room ready to play ball. And the other side, they brought foam bats. Let's start with that first clash with Representative Meeks. Meeks is hammering him on this idea that Rubio has forged Secretary of State, acting USAID. Meeks is acting like this is a scandal. He's saying, you can't possibly do all this. But did you catch Rubio's response? It was brilliant in its simplicity. He basically said, yeah, I'm doing all of them because they overlap. He pointed out that USAID has been folded under state and the NSA's role is interim. What Meeks is really complaining about there isn't Rubio's workload. He's complaining about the loss of, he's upset about consultation and process. Meanwhile, Rubio is sitting there proving that one accused leader can actually streamline these bloated agencies. He's not neglecting his job. He's cutting It's a classic case of a career politician worried about titles versus an executive worried about results. Rubio made it clear, the work is given, the archives are fine, and we didn't need for different bosses to do the job of one efficient team. Two tech eruption go to. Then we moved to Representative Johnson. Man, this segment felt like a fishing expedition where they didn't even bring bait. Shetries to hit him on Starlink and Elon Musk, implying some sort of shady influence because Starlink is in Africa. Rubio's answer? Total common sense. Starlink is everywhere. He haven't mentioned they have it in Syria. He completely dismantled the idea that Tusk's government is somehow twisting arms for Musk. He framed it perfectly. It's an American company providing a unique service that nobody else has. Why wouldn't we want American tech leading the way globally? And then the plan of thing. Did you see that? She tries toady him to some plain deal involving Qatar and Air Force One. Rubio didn't even blink. He's like, I've never even seen the plane. He explains, it's a Dodisu, not a State Department issue. That is how you handle a you hit it with boring hard facts. He knew the logistics better than the person questioning him. 3. The realism on human rights. Finally, we get to Representative Smith. This was a different vibe, more respectful but still tricky. Smith is pushing hard on human rights in Azerbaijan and China. Now, usually this is where politicians offer empty platitudes, but Rubio gave a very on Azerbaijan. He acknowledged bad stuff but reminded everyone our core focus is peace. He's saying, look, we can lecture them, or we can prevent a. He's choosing to prevent a war. That is what a serious Secretary of State sounds like. And the part about restructuring the Human Rights Office, the critics are going to scream us deleting it. But Rubio explained it perfectly. He's not getting rid of human rights advocacy. He's taking it out of a basement office and putting it on the front lines with regional bureaus. He's making it a Varion's job, not just a specialist. That is smart management. Final thoughts. Look, whether you love him or hate him, you have to admit Marco Rubio looked like the only adult in He didn't get rattled. He didn't raise his voice. And he didn't need a bender full of talking points to know that the Air Force buys the planes, not the State Department. He showed that he can handle 4 jobs Beckos. He's actually managing them, not just occupying a chair. It was a fiery hearing, sure, but only one side got burned. What did you guys think? Is Rubio overwhelmed, or is he just outworking critics? Let me know in